Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not to Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Flash, as well as the latest episode of Arrow. Like always, if I'm talking about something you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include the time and start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you don't want to hear what I have to say about this week's episode of The Flash, you can skip to what I have to say about this week's episode of Arrow. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of The Flash. A great episode. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, Ralph handling his own against Ramsey like that was actually pretty dope. Him kind of dodging and, using his stretching and abilities to kind of get the upper hand and stuff like that, but still Ramsey kind of got it. I did like when Ralph kind of sucked his hand into the sewers and just basically popped it up from another location and punched Ramsey. I was like, yeah, that's dope. I love stuff like that. But I was like, yeah, I bet you wondering why I came after you. And you have Ralph being like, yeah, super villains. Yeah, you're a bad guy, so that pretty much covers it. I know why you came after me. But nevertheless, sadly, he does infect Ralph. I was wondering if Ralph's body would make it so that, because it did seem like it kind of took Ralph down for a second the moment he got infected, but he was able to kind of fight back a little bit. I think maybe his rapid healing plus his body just being kind of made of rubber like that. The elasticity of his body maybe didn't make it so that it affected him immediately, but the moment Ramsey drew it out is when it kind of, and part of me was wondering, are we going to get a situation where Ralph ended up losing his abilities for it? Kind of similar to, Anissa actually, kind of because of the whole painkillers, like his poison kind of did the same thing to her. I was wondering if that was going to happen to Ralph in this case, but obviously he's in very critical condition. You're going to use Barry's blood, to get his speed healing as a means of helping Ralph. But sadly, they don't realize it at the time that Barry is infected. Because it's sad too, because obviously Barry's thinking about the fact is he's worried because it's like the fact is, and I love the time frame. It's like crisis is literally in 2 days. I'm like, dude, I love that that's the time frame for this. That's nuts. I mean, we're literally talking about the battle for the multiverse, a multiverse ending level event. It's kind of crazy to think about that it all comes down to like 2 days in the grand scheme of the time frame and the story and stuff like that. I just find that fascinating. But regardless, kind of diving into the main stuff of the episode, I did like it when at first it's like once Barry sees Ramsey and Ramsey's like calls him Flash. I'm like, he's inside your head, because I was like, the moment you transferred blood, some of the blood from Ralph, that's Ramsey's, transferred over to you, didn't it? And so I was like, because I thought it was interesting, because I was like, but then I started thinking, well, maybe not. Maybe it's just all in his head. Maybe this is his subconscious, which it technically is. It's a combination of Ramsey and the subconscious, but it's like, I thought it was going to be a thing, because I was like, oh, maybe when he woke up and everything, I was like, oh, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was all in his head and stuff like that. Maybe it just, his subconscious is getting the best of him. Because it's, what I meant to kind of elaborate more on what I brought up earlier is because he felt like he hadn't prepared everyone enough. But I was just like, no, you've prepared us to kind of handle things, because obviously it's like this crisis event is going to come, and he's worried that like Ramsey's going to be an issue. Like the fact is, Ralph is in the condition he's in right now, and it's almost like he probably feels like, I failed you already. It's like, how can I let myself die because of this crisis event? Because you guys might not be ready. Like if I wasn't here, like Ralph would have been in a terrible situation, because they're only able to luckily heal him because of Barry's blood and the speed, his speed and everything. So that was just kind of an interesting thing. But nevertheless, when he does come back, though, he ends up seeing his mom, and he's like, wait, Mom? And it's like, oh yeah, because he's unconscious because the infection has spread. Which I even love the Speed Force being like, we haven't talked in a while. I was like, right, it has been a while since you've actually talked. And I think the last time they talked was season 3's finale, when she took him to be in the Speed Force as a me. I think that was the last time they talked. I don't know if they've talked subsequently since then. Especially to my knowledge, that's the last time she took on the form of his mom. So, which that in itself is kind of an interesting thing. I'm skipping around here, but the fact is, Barry made a comment about how the Speed Force doesn't care about us. Like, I think the Speed Force cares about you a lot. You might be the one thing that ties the Speed Force to almost being human, because I don't think the Speed Force talks to anyone else. Like, we've never heard anyone else. Like, I don't think in the entire show we've ever heard anyone else talk about it, whether it be Eobard, whether it be Zoom, whether it be Savitar, which that's an interesting complication considering what Savitar being technically Barry, that whole situation. But even like Jesse nor Jay Garrick, I mean, not that I can remember, or even Wally have ever talked about communicating with the Speed Force, but the Speed Force has always popped up multiple times to talk to him. I think that shows you how important you are to everything, that the Speed Force puts so much towards you because you're special than any other speedster out there. So I just think that was just kind of an interesting thing. That's my perspective on it, because I don't think that Speed Force has ever really taken the time to talk to anyone but you. But like I said, I could be wrong about that. But regardless, diving into it, I did like that this episode did such a great job of like tearing Barry, like, because obviously there's a part of him is like he makes it seem like, oh, I'm accepted it, I'm ready to die, like he's getting everyone else prepared for it, but at the end of the day, Barry himself isn't, because obviously you have Ramsey kind of playing and pulling on his heartstrings. It's like, oh yeah, here's a dinner of family and friends. They're all sitting down eating, and it's like, oh, stuff that you want. Obviously, having Nora, being able to hold her in his arms, because obviously, like, even with Nora from last season, he didn't necessarily have that. I mean, he still had his relationship with his daughter, but obviously being able to hold her in his arms, especially knowing that in the future he wasn't there for her, which obviously that makes him probably want to hold her even more, and not being able to, and being torn from, like, by, it's such an interesting thing, because especially because Ramsey's reminding him of everything that he's lost, all the people, the friends, the allies that he's lost over the course of this series. And that's something that has always been a thing that Barry already, it's something he's always kind of had to shoulder that. And obviously with Ramsey kind of infecting his mind, poking at his subconscious and everything, using everything that he knows about Barry because he's inside Barry's head against him, because I don't think there's any enemy that's ever like really gotten inside of Barry's head like this, like to use everything against him on like such a psychological level to kind of break him down, because it's like, hey, if you come with me, the fact of the matter is, if you become like me, you can not only survive the crisis event, you'll live and you'll be able to save other people from death. Because once again, Ramsey in his mind is like, I'm giving people eternal life. The fact of the matter is, death doesn't have to be anything we have to be afraid of anymore. And that's why he's trying to remove Team Flash, because it's like, you're in a way, you're impeding what could be the future of humanity, and that's fighting against death no longer being something we have to fear. So I thought that was kind of like I said, just like I like the aspect of him kind of being torn, because Barry, it's like, yes, like the thing is he wants to make sure that the people he cares about are safe, but at the same time it's like, I'm torn between that and his own selfishness of like, I don't want to die. And I love that moment he brings that up to the Speed Force, because for him it's like, and I love that line, I've always let my past dictate my life. He was always driven by the past of what he had lost. Now all that he's gained is pushing him towards, like, I've seen what my future could be, what it is. I've lived. That was like me back then, like I'd been through so much, I lost so much. So if I had to give my life, I was willing to. But this, it's like, I've lived so much has happened. My family is extended. My group of friends has extended. The fact is, I got married. I've seen the daughter, the amazing daughter I'm going to have one day. And it makes you want to live, and it makes making that heroic sacrifice that much harder. I mean, and that's what this Speed Force talks about. But the fact of the matter is, everyone is selfish. I mean, that's a human thing. That's not a bad thing. The fact of the matter is, but having the courage to, push forward despite what it means to sacrifice yourself like that, is what makes you the hero that you are. Obviously it's interesting because the parallel is also happening at the same time. Iris is basically writing her story about the crisis situation, about losing Barry, which has to be so crazy having to write that before you've even lost Barry, even dating it the day of the crisis and everything. But regardless, I just thought that was kind of incredible, of like that was such a human moment of just being like, yeah, you might be a superhero, but at the same time you are a human. Like like any person would be in that situation. No one wants to die, but for him, he thought he was like, I thought I was fully ready to. Like I said, he was getting everyone else ready, but I think at the end of the day, he thought he was so certain. But Ramsey was able to poke at the doubts that even he wasn't ready or willing to even admit. But then It's like, oh, you're right. I just can't. His lies, they seem so tempting. Which the Speed Force is like, they're not lies. And he's like, wait, what? That really shocked me. That she was like, no, what he says is true. The fact of the matter is, you could survive the crisis if you were. And he's like, wait, what? And for Barry to snap when the Speed Force like that was incredible, because for him it's like, I just thought that was so interesting, because like he's giving into his rage and everything. Because for him it's like, wait, all I've ever done my entire life is sacrifice for you. You made me this way. I didn't ask to be a speeder. I didn't ask to be the Flash. You forced this upon me by me being struck by that lightning. The fact of the matter is, if it wasn't for you, my mom would actually be alive. I mean, hell, both his parents would still be alive, because in Barry's mind, it's like, you allowed Eobard and Zoom to become speedsters. Like, if it wasn't for you, neither one of my parents would be dead. None of this would have ever happened. My family's lives would be turned, like the people I care about, their lives, so many people's lives in general wouldn't have been turned upside down if you hadn't made me the Flash. Like, obviously, like I said, he was just being consumed by all the stuff that, you know, the venom that Ramsey was kind of spewing in his mind. But you can also see that perspective of, like, Barry kind of getting that realization of, like, wait, you just want me to, because for her, for the Speed Force, it's like, the fact of the matter is, this isn't the path you're supposed to go down. He's like, wait, so this is just more of you dictating my life. I'm tired because, and even Ramsey being like, look how many people tell you what to do with your life. You have, you know, the monitor telling you what your life is going to be, that basically your destiny set in stone. And basically the Speed Force is saying the same thing. And I thought that was, you know, his like, why he was so upset. Once again, it's understandable once you hear everything, but I just thought that was kind of interesting. And even him crossing the line that he does, phasing his hand through the Speed Force, I was like, whoa! I didn't expect him to do. I mean, I doubt that's going to be as easy to kill the Speed Force. I mean, I think even though the Speed Force is an entity, it's not like an actual being per se, even though it technically is. It doesn't technically have a physical form, but I think even it could probably die. I think even it's not immune from, like, eventually dying in some shape or form. That's how I chalk it up, but maybe that's not the case at all. But I thought it was so fascinating, like, him doing that, especially, like, what that means on so many levels. I mean, it's like, that's not the same thing Eobard did to your mom, but isn't that what Zoom did to his dad? I don't remember if that's what Hunter Zolomon did to his dad or not. Obviously, that was a go-to move by Eobard, but still, like, he never did it to Barry's mom, because he stabbed her with a knife to make it seem like Barry's dad did it, if I remember right. Regardless, it was just, but that's you doing a reverse Flash move, which obviously he's been tempted to do that before. Obviously, it's something he's capable of doing, but he just never does. But to do that to someone that looks like your mom, and I guess that's the kind of whole point of just showing you how far he was kind of getting sucked into all of this. But luckily at that time, you have Cisco giving him Velocity X, which kind of supercharges his, you know, it kind of basically kicks his speed into overdrive. Is essentially almost basically a speedster steroid that kind of kicked him into overdrive, and he was kind of able to, you know, push back against Ramsey, you know, but, you know, it was only momentarily. And I like, you know, this the Speed Force's explanation of, like, the reason why I don't want you to go down that path, because if you go down the path Ramsey wants you to, yeah, you'll survive, but you won't be the Barry Allen that you are. The fact is, who you are, everything that makes you you, the light inside of you will be wiped out. That's the light that made you the hero that you are, the man that Iris fell in love with. And if you go down this route, you won't be that person anymore. You'll lose yourself to all of this, which Ramsey's trying to, and then you literally have him tugged between the angel and the devil. I like that. And it's like the infection is spreading from Ramsey, and then the Speed Force, this lightning from the Speed Force is flying over to him too, and he's literally split in half, and it's just like they're both growing on both ends of him. Like, that's such a awesome moment of just like how awesome that look and what it represents, that, you know. And then, you know, luckily Barry was able to wake up, but the moment he's waking up and everything is calm and everything, I'm like, yeah, there's something's off. But then he got up and he was like, oh, we need to go after Ramsey. I'm like, maybe he was like, I was like, nah, there's something up here. He's not in control. And then like when Iris was there, just the way he was kind of like, he's like, oh, you're asking a lot of questions. She's like, yeah, reporter brain and everything. But just the way he was acting, it's just like, yeah, like after an event like that, he would talk to Iris because that's what they do. They talk. So it's like, if that was really Barry, he would have talked to her about that. But it's like, he's so focused on whatever he's doing. And if it was Iris, if it was, because Iris is like, if that was really Barry, he'd be wanting to try and spend as much time together, considering the crisis event is right around the corner. So she tells Cisco and Frost, like, that's not Barry. And when it turns out Barry's inflected, and I love the fact is that his lightning turns black. Because the thing is, it's like, I think because there was enough doubts in Barry to make it so that Ramsey could take control, it might be the thing of like, I don't think, because Barry was still somewhat torn, maybe he did that. He was already almost about to give in if it wasn't for the Velocity X. That gave the Speed Force kind of more of a fighting chance of kind of basically fighting for his soul. But who knows? Maybe the Speed Force is still holding on to a glimmer of Barry's light, kind of protecting it from the shadows. While like Ramsey has like 97% control, there might be that little 3%, which is obviously interesting because you can almost make comparisons to this and the whole Thinker situation with Duvall. Had like Barry and Duvall were like in essentially the Mindscape. It's kind of like a very similar thing in that regard. So I just thought that was kind of fascinating. But now he's kind of working with Ramsey, who's giving himself the new name Bloodwork. Because it is kind of interesting, because even Barry, because Ramsey had been like, you didn't, in all the possibilities of how this situation goes down, not once did you see me. And I'm like, that is interesting. I guess because they didn't want to even put that in Barry. Like, I don't know. That is thing. Like, why is it that throughout every possible future he saw, he never saw Ramsey? Especially considering, like, I'm sure Ramsey's still going to be potentially around after this crisis event. So it's like whatever his situation is, I guess, like, even the antimatter wouldn't be able to wipe him out. He's kind of like, I guess, borderlining an immortal right now. Maybe, I don't know. He is deathless, so even the antimatter might not kill him, so maybe that's what that's supposed to represent. Or maybe because he plays such a crucial role in the sense that maybe because he holds such a key to deciding Barry's fate. All of that was kind of Barry kind of looking at things from a hero perspective, how I can do things. I guess going down the route of Ramsey would have been a villain route, so maybe that's, I don't know. Like, you would think, because it's not like checking out all these different timelines and stuff like that would allocate to, like, it doesn't divide it up of like, oh, this is the good route, oh, this is the hero route, and this is the villain route. It's like, no, these are just the possibilities. Or you can make the argument maybe the Speed Force was hiding those potential possibilities from him about how his future potentially could go down. Or maybe just the fact is that Ramsey is an anomaly. Maybe that's what that's supposed to mean. Something that isn't quite within the system of just kind of time and everything, that basically he's kind of an entity that almost exists outside of it because he is deathless. It kind of makes him kind of a blind spot in the grand scheme of space and time, essentially. Could be super reading too much into that, but I just thought that was kind of a fascinating element to it. So obviously with all of that, there's also another element I thought was kind of interesting, where it seemed like at one point when they were working on Barry, like Cisco had to be like, whoa, Frost, he couldn't get her attention, and she falls to the floor. I think legitimately she had a panic attack, because I think in that moment it made her think about like Ralph and everything, like what condition he was in and how scared she was. Because I think for her, she's always kind of like, I think for her, the emotional side of things is still something so fresh and new to her, because for her it's like, obviously we know that she was scared about her own death, knowing that like everything was imminent, that basically the crisis event is coming. But I think also looking at Barry and Ralph made it too real, because these are people she cares about. They're in a situation like, I can't do anything. She's scared because she never had to care before. Caring was Caitlin's issue, but now she's, her heart's kind of thawed, there's no longer an icebox where her heart used to be. Where her heart is. I completely screwed that. I was making a reference to, Icebox, the Marion song, but I didn't word it the way I should have. Regardless, let's move past my blunder. And it's like, yeah, any medical stuff going for it, I'm going to leave it to, Caitlin. And I was like, and Cisco's like, are you sure about that? And she was like, yeah, because I think for her, she's scared of being in a position of like, if I fail, you guys will get hurt. I mean, maybe she might even be thinking like, because, I don't know. I think that's the thought process, and I thought this kind of a fascinating moment of just kind of her having that moment of vulnerableness, and even Cisco's like, if you want to talk about what she's like already talked about it with Caitlyn, so it's kind of, you know, once again she doesn't like being vulnerable with people. It's once again it's still something new to her, so there's that. Then there's the whole Allegra situation, her being like, all right, so how am I going to go fight Iris? Like, about, like, yeah, I know your husband's the Flash. And then she sees the report that Iris is making about the Flash, about the crisis thing. And so, like, anytime, like, Iris is like, yo, you know, she's bringing her and Camilla, Allegra and Camilla into like this investigation into like this dude that obviously we saw a little bit more of the dude from the last episode. Obviously he's connected to like what happened to Esmeralda. So obviously Allegra's like, yeah, rather than focusing on that, like, well, yeah, I want to know what happened to my cousin and everything, but don't you have something more important? And she couldn't directly bring it up to Iris, so Iris and her are doing some investigating, which it turns out that guy's not necessarily connected to all of this. Like, it's not like, oh, he's a bad guy. He's kind of a middleman. The way Allegra kind of puts it is like, you're basically Uber for like the rich and powerful. Like, basically he just kind of makes deliveries for people, and he kind of like drives people around. That's kind of all he. And obviously they're trying to find another angle to it, but Allegra brings up like, I know your hubby's the Flash, and it's like, how did you? She's like, Nash told me, and so it brings up the whole story of it, like, and I like that moment, and you know, once again, kind of showing you the full effect of everything of like. Iris referred to obviously Barry as the Streak, like before she found out, you know, Barry was the Flash and everything. And Allegra talks about the fact is reading that story gave her hope when she was in Iron Heights. And, you know, so it's like you as a reporter, the fact of the matter is it gave me hope. It made me want to be a reporter to kind of tell the truth, you know, let people know, because the truth can give so many people hope. That story about the Streak and, you know, Iris's words gave Allegra hope. So it's like the fact of the matter is, if you don't write this story, I know how painful it is, but if you never write this, you never will. If you don't write it now, you never will, and you'll never forgive yourself for not being able to do that, which we do see that she does kind of give, you know, Bear, you know, talks about, you know, what he's done for the city, that the fact of the matter is realizing that his sacrifice is what truly gives him the title of hero, and what, you know, he's done for the city and everything. So I thought that was kind of pretty impressive. And then there was also I love that line of like, you know, it's like, oh, maybe we don't have to handle this, maybe we can get, you know, that other person, your husband's friend, involved. Allegra's alluding to like the Flash, which obviously I was just like, oh, you can, no, Camilla knows that Barry's the Flash, and she's like, what since when? And Allegra's, Camilla's like, since, you know, summer, you know, Cisco used to be Vibe, and Allegra's just kind of like, why am I the last one to literally know all of this? It's like, not only did you know about the Flash, I'm now finding out about Cisco being Vibe. What the hell? I love that. It's so good. Right till you find out Ralph is elongated, man. And Caitlyn's I don't know if she's met Caitlyn yet, but regardless, she might not even have met Ralph yet, has she? I don't remember. Well, yeah, I think she met elongated. I don't remember if she actually met Ralph. She might have it, I just don't remember. Regardless, I just thought that was kind of a neat moment. I did forget to talk about it, but like when it was in Barry's mind, he saw not only the gravestones, but obviously like the different people. You know, he saw Iris, he saw Joe, he saw Ralph, and even saw Eobard, kind of referencing what happened to Nora. You know, and basically he's. You know, it's kind of a kick in the teeth when even your own nemesis is kind of used to attack you subconsciously. So, regardless, quite a way to end off this episode. Obviously, this is a two-parter. I am so excited to see where all this takes us, because next week's episode is going to be the lead up into the Crisis event. So that's going to be pretty sick in its own right. So I'm very curious to see kind of where this story takes us in part two, how they're going to like. How do you fight Barry's infection? Like I said, I think there's still going to be a part of Barry, you know, still alive on the inside. Much like I said, the whole Thinker, you know, DeVoe situation. I think Barry will be able to kind of fight it, but I think it's going to be a fight on two fronts. Because you also got to think about like, right? Because now, not only you have to worry about Ramsey, he's literally got the Flash under his belt, which is obviously complicated because it's like now the Flash is probably going to be a part of the evil stuff that he's doing in town, which wouldn't be the first time Barry's been kind of controlled and used for evil, but still, it's going to be interesting to see where all this ultimately ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. And now moving on to this week's episode of Arrow, a great episode. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Very powerful episode. Obviously, the weird thing of Oliver waking up and being like, wait, what? And like, at first I wasn't sure like what they were going to, what the episode was really entitled, like what was going down, because it's like, I was like, wait, because it was like, it said, I knew the episode title was Reset, so it's like, wait, is it kind of a thing of like Oliver's life is reset, like things didn't go down the way, almost kind of like the Earth 2 situation of like, obviously, like in the sense that he took up the role of his Earth 2 counterpart after everything. I was wondering if that's kind of a similar thing of kind of, rather it's like his life was on a restart set of like, oh man, like he's here and just nothing went down the way it was, and almost kind of a little bit of the heroes versus alien situation when the aliens had put him in a machine that make him like, oh yeah, this is your perfect life and everything. I was wondering if they were kind of doing a certain thing like that, but it turns out basically, he goes to this party. He ends up running into the mayor, none other than Quentin. Even though it's like, oh my God, Quentin. I literally brought Quentin up like last time or something because something made me. Oh, I think it was the whole situation with Laurel kind of brought up Quentin in conversation. And of course, it would be Quentin because obviously we're going full circle on so many elements. That's what I'm saying. Like everything's coming full circle because like we're kind of like everything and everyone that had these special important roles and lessons to teach Oliver. It's so interesting because like this is the end of his story. And of course, the people that played the biggest role in molding him, playing a role in molding him into the man, the hero that he became. Of course, someone like Quentin is going to pop up again. But obviously the thing is, like, he's there to stop this guy who's trying to, like, they want Quentin, they're holding hostages. Oliver saves the day, but then, like, a bomb goes off, but then resets. He's stuck in a time loop, which is interesting. I vaguely feel like there was an episode of The Flash that had a time loop. I could, like a Groundhog Day type of situation. I don't remember. I vaguely feel like there was one. I know there's definitely a Legends one. That was a programming by Gideon because it was in season 3 where she was trying to get Zari to kind of join up with the team, kind of like cannot keep a distance from them, kind of bond and create a relationship with them. So I thought that was kind of a neat element and everything. I even love Oliver trying to explain it to Diggle, but Diggle's not really listening. Then there's the whole Lila thing. Because then I'll start wondering, it's like, is this the real Diggle? Like, it seems like, I don't know. It was just, I kind of started thinking like it wasn't the real Diggle. But I love that when he brings out Quentin's like, believes him immediately. He's like, wait, you believe me? He's like, Oliver, after everything that we've been through, what we've experienced, how can I not? Literally, my daughter's coming back from the dead, one of them twice, and then, another version, obviously Earth 2 Laurel, of my other daughter, and then also a man in red who can run so fast he can turn back time. So it's like, yeah, I've come to believe that, obviously, when you say that something's going on, I best believe you, because when I don't believe you, it kind of bites me in the ass. So I thought that was kind of a beautiful element to it. It's like, okay, how are we going to deal with the bomb? And lo and behold, who's he running to? Laurel, because Laurel's a part of this as well, which he brings up Quentin, which she didn't realize Quentin was alive in this continuity. And it's like, okay, so it's that tough spot of like constantly losing him over and over again. Even the Lila situation, I was like, something suspicious about this, because she's not fitting the mold of like her conversations and route and everything. So she goes over and she talks to Laurel, and it's like basically saying that if Laurel has issues with her, it's on her, not on Lila. And Lila was making this whole point about how, I don't know. I just thought it was kind of interesting. I even love that Laurel made a slight dig at her and being like, I pull off the shorter hair better than you or something like that. I was like, that was such an unnecessary dig. Just Laurel being an asshole. I love it. But obviously, no matter what Oliver and Laurel did, they couldn't save Quentin. It just repeat over and over again. It was just kind of like a thing, because for him, this is obviously like, for him, he's like, ever since Diaz shot me, it was a miracle that I survived and everything. And the fact is that it just, I felt like, almost like things could have gone sideways, which obviously they did in the real world and everything. But I thought it was kind of neat when it gets revealed, like that Lila is really Lila, and she's there, and she kills Quentin because it's like you're not getting the lessons you're supposed to be learning from this. And so obviously Lila kind of disappears, and so it turns into the thing of trying to figure out, okay, so what is the lessons we're supposed to learn? Obviously, Laurel spends time with her dad and kind of brings up the fact is that he died. You know, for her, it's like when Ricardo shot you, like you died saving me, and he was like, "Well, there's no better way to die." It's like for him, it's like, wait, how can you be so calm? I'm literally telling you that you're basically like a ghost or something. Because I even love that they made reference. What was the other reference they make? Because obviously he makes a reference to like, he makes a reference to Groundhog's Day. She makes a reference to Edge of Tomorrow, because she's like this reboot Edge of Tomorrow. I love that being a bit in it, but it's like I love it. She's like, yeah, you went Groundhog Day. I went more Tom Cruise in the whole aspect of this whole time loop thing. But regardless, I thought that was kind of neat. But I think for her dad, it's just a situation of like, you know, obviously I'm a parent. What parent wouldn't give their life for their child and everything, you know? So I like what this represents, because this is someone that's important to both Oliver and Laurel. That's why they picked him for this. That's why they picked Quentin for this particular, you know, situation, because they start thinking like, okay, this is the monitor. It's like he's punishing us. Why would he be doing that? It's like, well, we were the biggest thorns in his side. We're basically the ones that kind of said no to a god. Well, as you know, Harrison, Nash on The Flash kind of refers to him as basically pretending to be a god. He's a pseudo god, but not really a god. That obviously they kind of pissed off someone with almighty power. So it's like, okay, so that's what this is all about. And so the complicated thing is that, like I said, they were both meant to learn a lesson. In Laurel's case, her lesson was basically being able to tell her father goodbye. She never got the chance to say goodbye to him because he died before then. And especially for her, it's like, I did everything to make you proud and everything. I want to make, I want to be a hero so that you be proud of me, which he was like, you already are a hero. And she's like, it's because of you, like Quentin gave her second chance. She became the hero that she is, who she's destined to be because of Quentin. And she just wanted to let him know she never got the chance, just how much he mattered to her. Like, and I think Quentin always knew, but I think for her, it's just the thing of like, she felt guilty because she never got a chance to say it. So for her, when Quentin died, I was thinking like, oh, there's not going to be a reset this time. They're going to be kind of stuck with it. But for her, she was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. I said goodbye. Because Oliver was saying the fact is he's not giving up, and even Laurel was like, you're kind of stubborn like that. And it's like, I'm with you, because obviously it meant saving her dad. Even though it wasn't her dad, it was still her dad. It's like, if it meant saving him, she was going along with it. But now it's just kind of like, it to be too painful to keep doing this over and over again. I got a chance to say goodbye, so I have to kind of accept it. So when the reset happens, he's the only one there. I even did like it at one point in time that he did explain things to kind of Diggle, which Diggle was like, hey, the fact of the matter is we're dealing with Marno View, and the fact is he's as powerful as he is. He can make this all happen. So the fact of the matter is, if there's a solution, I know if on it. It's like, how can you be so sure? He's like, because you're you. Like, the fact of the matter, basically, everything that Oliver's ever been stacked up against, if there's an answer and there's a way, he'll find it, which I love, Oliver being like, even if this isn't real or whatever, that side of you never changes no matter what. That side, it always kind of believes in him and everything. So I thought that was kind of a neat element to it. But obviously Oliver wasn't willing to give up. He's still trying to fight to say Quentin, even with all those people. And I like, it's actually pretty dope to see them kind of team up. Oliver shooting the arrows and people coming up, Quentin, bam, bam. It was just, I don't know, it's kind of nice to see them team up, especially knowing he's not around anymore, after everything they've been through. And that was even a point that Quentin was kind of making. The fact of the matter is, he was like, hey, the fact of the matter is, can you think about it? Like, they being in this room, kind of being hunted down, it reminds me of like what I put you through at the beginning, of like what led to, back when he was the hood and everything, and Quentin was hunting him down and everything. And the fact is, I think for him, he appreciated what Oliver was trying to do, trying to save him and everything, but also just like, obviously, just in the grand scheme of things, he is grateful for, I think he recognizes, for like, the fact is, for him, it's like, I've always avoided death. It just, for him, it's like the siege, the island, Lee and you, and then Ricardo. It felt like that moment. That felt like he could almost finally let go. Like I guess almost in a way for Quentin, it was a thing of like he lived as long as he needed to kind of make sure, basically what he did for Oliver's story, what he did for Oliver, what he did for, Laurel, the change that he caused within them, making Laurel the hero that she is, changing Oliver into the man that he's become. Like, I thought that was, I think that's a beautiful element to it all. And so for him, it's like, I'm not giving up. I'm giving in, but Oliver's not willing to give up. It's like, I can save you, Quentin, but he's like, see you on the other side, and sacrifices himself. And obviously that's the hard lesson that Oliver kind of has to take away from all of this, that the fact of the matter is that there is no running from fate, that the thing that he's supposed to learn from this is you have to accept your fate, that there is no changing it. Like Quentin avoided his fate for so long, and it eventually caught up with him anyway, because it was supposed to end like that. It was like basically like he'd been given so many chances to escape the grips of death, and he considered himself lucky, so. And so Oliver kind of looks at, Connor, William, and Mia, and he's kind of grateful to be able to get to know them the way, he has, And for him, it's like no matter what happens in the outcome of all of this crisis stuff, she's like, you're going to be okay, Dad. He's like, it will be, no matter how this whole crisis thing turns out. And so he goes to see Quentin one last time about the fact that, you remember when we were on opposite sides? He's like, yeah, the good old days when I was hunting you down and stuff. He's like, what made you decide to believe in me? He was like, well, the fact of the matter is I didn't raise any dummies. So if my daughters were willing to believe in you, I was too, And I don't know, man. It kind of breaks me up on the inside for him to have to say goodbye to Quentin and everything. And Quentin's like, whoa, what's going on, Oliver? And he's like, no, I'm just, he's like, it's so hard to kind of, say goodbye to you. He's like, why do you say goodbye? It's like, the event's still going on. And, he's like, we'll see each other again, Oliver. And Oliver's like, I hope so, And obviously, Lila shows up to be like, yeah, this was a lesson that you were meant to be taught. Because the fact of the matter is, this whole situation, much like the whole Elseworlds thing, everything since then has been a test. It's like everything that he's done so far, he thinks like all this was like some nonsense. But even the antimatter weapon and stuff like that, it was all part of the plan too. It just wasn't going to be utilized the way you thought it would be. The fact of the matter is, it's like, this crisis is coming, and the fact of the matter is like, well, you didn't tell John. It's like, because I wanted to protect him, much like you. What did you do? You left Felicity and Mia in that cabin. Why? To protect him. And like, for her, it's like, I'm doing the same thing. Like, obviously, she kind of knows what it is that's coming. I guess Monrevu kind of gave her an insight into it. I guess it's kind of like the burden of knowledge. You know what's coming. And I think even for her, like, once again, I don't think Lila's coming out of this alive. Maybe, maybe not. But I think it's a thing of like the lesson she's trying to teach Oliver is a lesson she had to accept. So if she's willing to sacrifice herself, if it means making sure everyone else she cares about. Because if Diggle found out the truth, he'd probably find out about what happens to her. So it's probably not only Oliver's fate that's sealed because of this crisis event. And that's, once again, it's just the parallels between this and Barry, because obviously, like, Ramsey's trying to get Barry to believe, like, your fate's not set in stone, like, we can change everything. And even Barry's seen the multiple possibilities, and for him, he believes it to be fate, that I have to die during this crisis event to save and protect everyone that I care about, protect this multiverse. And Oliver is kind of in that same situation. So, Barry's still in the middle where his story has left us off in The Flash and everything. He's still in the middle of that struggle, because obviously Ramsey, once again, Barry's still torn. Regardless of where he is right now, being controlled by Ramsey and stuff like that. Spoilers for The Flash, even though, because someone might be listening to this who didn't watch The Flash. But regardless, because of that, I think he still hasn't cemented it, gotten rid of his doubts. And obviously this was about, it's so interesting because that episode's all about, Barry's doubts. And these are Oliver's, in the sense that, he's trying to fight his fate. And that's what this whole Lance situation was supposed to represent, like saving Lance, even though it was almost futile, that fate was always going to catch up to them, was meant to be a representation of his unwillingness to give up. It's not necessarily giving up, but it is the fact is of giving in and accepting your fate is what it is. Because Lila is like, you are going to be the key factor. You are the most, basically the key figure in all of this. You are going to be what makes the difference in this coming crisis. There's going to be a darkness like nothing any of us have ever faced before, and you're going to be the centerfold to winning this, you know? So that was the kind of the whole point of it all. You know, it's like Marno Vu isn't a bad guy, but it's like everything kind of paints him to be the bad guy. So it's like, okay. Once again, and there's everything with Nash too. So is Lila being lied to as well? Is a monitor like that's the thing? Arrow kind of shifted it because at first it's like Elseworlds kind of made it seem like okay he wasn't the good guy, but then it's like oh no he's a neutral guy, but also a good guy because he seems neutral in the grand scheme of things, but it also seems he leans more towards being a good guy to the sense that he's trying to build up warriors for the face what's to come. You know the fight once again, like I said during during Flash, a crisis event that's literally going to shake if not just straight up just plain up destroy the multiverse. The battle for the multiverse is coming up. So I thought that, but then it seems like everything they were setting up from what they learned in Nana Parvat that he was the bad guy, you know? So that's why I'm kind of like not 100% sure, but now it seems like no, we're making it so he actually is the good guy. He is in the right in all of this. I don't know. I'm still kind of hesitant to believe that, but we'll see. But that acceptance of everything, accepting his fate, kind of wakes him up. So him and Laura wake up, and it's like, okay, so it turns out her being able to say goodbye to Lance wasn't supposed to be like some punishment. It was actually the monitor giving her rewarding her because all you have to do to get your world back is betray Oliver. It was a test to see, and it's like you pass the test because you've proven that you're not the same person you are anymore, that you have grown, that you have become the hero. That was a hero move, that even though if it meant bringing your Earth back, you're not willing to go back to the person you were before. So it's kind of, and now it's kind of the thing of like now, you know, I love Laura being like, oh, that means Lila was right, which I don't like that. But now it's a whole thing of you know, like I said, what Oliver learned from this, and so now they're preparing for their final mission because once again, the crisis event is literally right around the corner. Obviously for Arrow, it's not as right around the corner, but you know, the Arrow part of it, which will be part 4 because that won't air until January, but still, next episode is going to be leading into the crisis event. Oh, dude, I'm so excited. And, you know, obviously they go out. The moment I see them in the tent and everything, I'm like, it's like, where are we? I'm like, you're only in you, aren't you? I was like, maybe they won't necessarily do. I was thinking that, but I was like, maybe they won't do that because of the whole. You already kind of technically been there because of the beginning of the season and everything, but it goes out there and everyone's there. Mia, John, William, and Connor, and it's like, okay, so what is this all about? Where are we? And they're in Lee and you. Once again, everything coming full circle. This was the beginning of Oliver's journey, and to think that this might be his final mission, that this might be the start, the beginning, the real beginning of the end. It's kind of crazy to think, you know, once again, it started all here, everything he's been through. And then we actually think about everything that he's faced. Once again, it has been kind of connected to like stuff that he, you know, once again, places he went to connected to Lian Yu, meeting up with Anatoly in Russia, running into Katana in Shanghai. You know, Earth 2 stuff was kind of him getting his start again, you know, picking up with his life. Obviously, it was a little different than everything on Earth 1, but it was kind of like facing who he was, you know, trying to change, you know, things, you know, accepting, being the hero that he has become over everything and changing this world where things went differently because he wasn't around, you know? So it all feeds into itself, you know, of this great test that it is. And it's fascinating when you actually really think of it on such an existential level of just like this has all been tailored for Oliver. Every mission, everything has been tailored to push him. This has all been a test. And this final mission, I'm assuming, is going to be the final test. I'm wondering, since we're on Leah and you, I'm like, we might see like maybe some Shadow, maybe her dad, maybe even Slade. I'd assume like you make an assumption because they were the three important. Well, I mean, obviously Sarah as well, but those are the three most important things to Oliver, because if it wasn't for Shadow's dad, you know, Oliver wouldn't have gotten the training he did. And also Shadow was someone that he cared for deeply, and then Slade, who was like a brother to him, became an enemy who is now a friend and a brother again, which obviously everything's kind of going full circle because obviously like Anatoly is a brother again, you know. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see, you know. Oliver's, you know, has accepted his fate. I don't know if anyone else has necessarily accepted it. I doubt his kids have, especially because, you know, William grew up without, you know, his dad in his life, and Mia did the same, you know, as well. And obviously, like, Team Flash is literally dealing with it. Once again, the parallels are so interesting that they are both dealing with it, because we haven't really seen that with the others yet. I mean, Kara's kind of going through her own turmoil, but it isn't necessarily crisis connected. So it's definitely going to be interesting. You know, I mean, I say that now, but like the next episode is going to be lead up to Crisis on the Supergirl side of things. So, you know, that and Batwoman. So we'll have to, you know, wait and see where things kind of go from there. But I am so excited to see what the next episode has in store for us. What is going to go down on Lee and you? What is this final mission that they're going to have to be dealing with? I'm very excited to find out. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.